Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I'm Ariel Serber. I'm live with Martha Underwood in Virginia, right, Martha?
Yeah, that's where I
That's
am.
where you are right now. So we're going to get right into it. And Martha, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what you're working on?
Sure. Thank you for having me, Ariel. It's awesome to be here. My background, wow. So I've been in technology for a long time. Started my career at IBM in the mid '90s. Worked in several different industries in health tech and data analytics, manufacturing, retail, and then on my corporate side, corporate career, ended my corporate career as the head of retail software engineering at a global bank. So really got to understand the ins and outs of banking and bring my technical experience across several industries that I've worked in to what I do now with Prism.
All right.
We can go into that. We can talk about
Yeah,
it. I'm excited to talk about it and how I got
of
here.
course. That's, you know what, I think that any founder has to be enthusiastic to talk about it's almost like their baby. So maybe talk about Prism as if it's your baby. How did it, how did it, from conception? I mean, I'm not trying to make this like too much into this metaphor. From idea and, the concept to actually uh, launching and till now.
Yeah.
Like, how did
So
it come to be and all that?
everyone talks about, founders typically have their own story and they experienced an issue and couldn't find a solution and so created it. And so I'm no
Mm.
different. I experienced this problem. So in 2017, my dad fell off the roof after Hurricane Irma, helping someone and went
Right.
unconscious. And
Sorry.
yeah, he's okay, which is great.
Oh,
But
wow.
there was
Okay.
a lot of touch and go there for a minute. But when during the time of uncertainty where we didn't know, what was going to happen because he was unconscious, we were just trying to figure out where the assets were. And my dad had banked with the same bank and been with the same credit union for over 30 years, and they did not know
Mm-hmm.
us, and we didn't know them, and we didn't
Mm.
know where the assets were. And so when he came to, when we found out that he was going to be okay, and he's stronger than ever today, I said we needed to make sure that we understood where all of his assets were, where everything was, so that if anything ever happened again, my mom would be taken care of because my dad has a lot of assets. And so that was my personal experience, and it was chaotic during the time. And I'm sure if anyone ever experienced that, they know exactly what I'm talking about. But then fast forward to 2020, when COVID hit, I was at the bank and we had several people coming into the branches looking for the assets. And I realized now I'm on the other side of the table and I'm at the bank, and these family members are now strangers to us. And it begged the question, like, if they're beneficiaries, why don't we know them? Especially when you have account holders that have had accounts for 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. Like, it didn't make
Right.
sense. And so, and people typically go to the bank whenever there's a issue. They look to their financial institutions when someone dies to be the the people to provide the answers, right? The institution to be able to guide them in this. And I didn't see that process. And so I said, well, we can create something for the banks to connect the beneficiaries to them much earlier so that the first time they're meeting them is not during one of the most emotional times of their life. And
Yeah.
so that's why we built Prism, and that's the value we bring to the banks and to the the community members and the members of the institutions.
So what does Prism actually like on a real day-to-day level
Yeah.
do?
So
How does it work?
yeah. So the first thing it does is it allows customers to self-service adding their beneficiaries. If anyone ever had to add a beneficiary to their account, they know that they had to go to the bank,
Hmm.
talk to someone, put that information in, sign a paper, and then wait for it to get updated. And that's a long
And you
process.
and you and you probably didn't have the right documents when you went in.
Correct. Correct. All of those things. And so what
Yeah.
we do is digitize that first. And through your mobile app, through your desktop, whenever you log on to your online banking, you have the
Yeah.
option to add or update or change your beneficiary. The next thing Prism does, it allows you to connect any of your financial accounts to it. So you can give your beneficiaries visibility into all of the accounts that you have or not, because you can control who sees what and when. Can also add any documents or any property or assets that you have. And then the third thing that we do is when there is a death, or what we like to call transition, you can go in and
Hmm.
automatically request that those assets from that account holder that you are now the beneficiary of gets automatically transferred to you. So therefore you can kind of stay with that institution, because that institution knows you. They made it easy for you during your hardest time. Most likely you're going to keep loyalty to them.
Yeah, and people think of beneficiaries when they think of life insurance or their employee benefit, but they don't really think about it when it comes to a bank account.
Correct.
And you wrote a
They
book called Death of Deposits.
Yes,
So
I did.
I guess that's not very subtle. So maybe, you know,
Yeah.
what do you mean by all that? And what can banks do? And what's the process for them to, let's say, okay, yeah, this sounds good. What do I do?
Yeah. And so the reason why I wrote Death of Deposits is I really wanted to highlight the experience that customer has. And when we did our research, going to a bank, the least amount of steps to get the assets from an account holder was 11, the most was 21. And you
Yeah.
touched several different people. It's like I come into the bank, I talked to Tom one day, and
Mm,
Tom understands everything, has me fill out paperwork and say, come back tomorrow or 2 days later. And I come back 2 days later, and now I got to talk to Mary and I got to tell her the whole story again. And Tom didn't transfer the proper documents to Mary. She doesn't know. I got to do it again. So it just becomes
right.
a nightmare for people who are already stressed and have to continue on with life. And so I wanted to be able to show financial institutions that this process is outdated. And at the end of that process, you write a check that walks out the door of your institutions. And everyone in banking knows that they need deposits. They need to keep deposits to lend off of those,
Hmm.
and to be healthy. And so we highlighted what the customer's experience is, and then on the other side of that gave suggestions on how you can improve that by moving that into a digital experience, because everything else is digital now, right? Payments is
Yeah,
digital, lending is digital, I can apply for credit cards, all of those different things. But why isn't this digital? We expect digital convenience across our lives. So why wouldn't this,
sure.
from inheritance perspective, come up to this century and become digital? And so we talk through that. We also talk through the math, because in the banking industry or the financial institution industry, death is
Hmm.
looked at as natural attrition. Like, oh, they're going to die, though that money will walk out the door anyway. No, there are things that you can do now in order to help keep those deposits in house, by one, knowing who they are, the beneficiaries, making it easier for them to be able to get the assets when something does happen to their loved ones.
Hmm.
And then there's several other things that the banks can do on that. But I highlighted
Yeah,
all of that information in the book, and the book was meant to be a thought piece to show them a different way to think about attrition, death attrition, not just accept it as natural
yeah,
dollars that walk out the door.
yeah. Death attrition. That is terrible. I gotta say, like that just is, to me, that's so cold. It's like, God. But
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
but
yeah,
there's so many factors happening here, and it's funny because people don't want to talk about death. I don't want to talk about it. Like, we don't want to think about it, but
no, of course not.
it's a natural part of life. And the thing with that is there's so much at stake there. And so when I
Yeah,
talk about death attrition, I also talk about death as a liquidity event, because when that
of
person
course.
dies, they need to transfer these assets, right? And so if it's a liquidity event, I always talk about how the deposit account is the pass through for all of the money. That's where the retirement funds may go. That's where, if you're selling
Insurance.
the house, the insurance, all of these things will go to that account. And so, wouldn't it make sense for me
Yeah,
to understand and know the beneficiaries who might,
yeah,
have access to that account, to say, hey, let me help you with this. Let me help you
of
through this
course.
process.
Yeah,
And that hasn't been thought of. And so the other thing that I did for the financial institutions with the book is I did the math and of
sure.
how much that they're going to be losing, what's at stake. And I took it a step further with our and you'll love this name, the the deposit mortality index, which takes banks data, FDIC data, it takes census data, Social Security
Mhm.
data, investment call data, and then scores every bank or credit union on what their risk is of deposit flight because of death. And
Okay.
when I've done that math and I show that to them, they're like, "Wow, we didn't realize just how much is exiting." And then you juxtapose that against the growth factor, right? Like, how much are you growing? How many new accounts are you getting of the next
Right, because
generation?
it's that minus that. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, and
And so
and and
now
when you
it's
and when you mentioned the technology piece and the digital and the convenience, that's the generation that's going to access this money. And
absolutely
if they don't have a good experience, they're going to be out the door. They have no loyalty at all.
at all. Not no loyalty. It's
At all.
I,
Also, you mentioned that to take a second on the death thing, and I guess that's also like a that's that death doesn't have good branding. I'm sorry, it just doesn't.
it
Right?
doesn't
I mean, there's a reason that life insurance is called life insurance and not death insurance. That's
yeah,
actually why it's called life insurance, because
yeah,
otherwise, no one would buy it.
correct. Yeah.
You know,
And
so
that's why
maybe it needs a bit of a reframe like that too.
it absolutely needs a reframe. And that's why we call ourselves Prism, because no one wants to think about death, right? We want to think about life, but I wanted to name it something where it doesn't put you in a frame of mind of just straight negativity and morbidness. Um,
Hmm.
because again, you're going to have to deal with that when the time comes. And when you have a parent or a loved one or a grandparent or someone that transitions, you want it to be easy. And so, yes, I want to be able to call my life insurance and not talk about death insurance. And
Hmm.
even when you are talking about, you know, there are a lot of products on the market right now to try to help people, and they're calling it death tech. Like, I don't. Death tech is rough, right?
That's rough.
It's
That's a rough one.
it's kind of rough, but I understand why they say it because you just call a thing. But there's some psychological things that's happening around there. You want to be able to help people move and act. Financial awareness is already something that can overwhelm people. And then when you add the death to it from a complexity
Sure.
perspective, it makes it worse. And it's not just about death, it's also about incapacitation because we have a lot of older people who
Hmm.
are dealing with, memory loss and all of those things. So it
Yeah.
delegation comes into this as well, which is why it's important that the financial institutions know who the beneficiaries are, because
Yeah.
who am I delegating access to?
Mm.
Right.
And it's not just that, it's also scams. I'm sure you've seen this. Other people we've talked about this, and I've heard about it just on a almost daily basis. Oh, my mother was told she had to come to the bank and take out cash and bring it here, or and people, especially when they're vulnerable, maybe they just had a loss, maybe
Yep.
they're a widow or a widower,
Yep.
um, and that creates opportunity for the bad guys. So the
Yes.
banks are really the front line. It sounds
Absolutely.
like to me what you're saying is the banks are the front line and the what we're all calling the great wealth transfer.
Correct.
So yeah,
Correct. Because I mean they're the holders of the dollars. And that's where everyone will go for the accounts, right? And then the other complexity you add on this is most people have 3 to 4 bank accounts now. It's not where you have a
yeah,
primary bank account and you know where it is. And then you start to add on the fact that there are digital accounts where there's no branch.
mhm,
So all of these different things is just compounding the issue of knowing where the dollars are
sure,
and who the beneficiaries are.
sure. I was actually talking about this with someone yesterday, and actually I was talking about a situation that happened very early in my career,
Mhm.
where I was talking to a widow and her, let's say, kids, but they were in their 40s, so she was around 70, just lost her husband. They were like stock certificates. This is this is about 20 years ago. Literally, I was called in like, come. I I it was terrible. About a week later, she actually was killed by a school bus in her neighborhood, and then we had to go through like the whole thing again. And just the traumaticness of all that. Plus, then we have to, um, you know, so like these are people's lives and their stories,
Yeah,
and you
it
just
is.
don't know, and you can't take anything for granted. So
You
that's
cannot.
why it's like the planning is important.
It is. And Ariel, I'll tell you, over this past week, I've had um one, two, three, 5 people email me and say
Mm.
that they had a loved one unexpectedly die. Either
Mm.
there was a mom or someone had an accident. Um, it was so it is something that I think people are now starting to wake up to, and it's young and old. We do have the
Yeah.
boomers that are going to be transitioning, but the fact that I was just like, what's happening? Like, this is the fifth one that came in to me. And they're coming to me now and they're just like, I understand exactly why, because I went to the bank and they're telling me their story, right? Of
Yeah.
I'm having challenges. Can you help guide me on what the process or
Mm.
what should I do first? But it really is a delicate thing because especially when it's unexpected, you're just left with, man, I didn't plan. I don't know where these items are. I don't know where anything is. And then you go to the bank and you're thinking, oh, surely they know who I am, right? As a part
Yeah.
of the family. And
Sure.
surely, this process they will guide me through. And I just think that it's one of the things where I call it inheritance infrastructure that as an industry, we need to look at and see how we can modify it for the better and make it less daunting for the families that is going to have to deal with it. And
Yeah.
when you do that, you'll win customers because it's about convenience during a difficult moment.
Yeah. And so can you talk more about that infrastructure piece of it? What you
Yes.
mean by it? And
What I mean by it is it's not something that is an opt-in. So a lot of times you have different platforms where the customer is paying for something and they're opting in. What we've done is we've integrated directly into the bank cores so we can offer it as just another product. So think Zelle. One day you didn't have Zelle, the next day you did. And you're not sending money to anyone every day, but when you need to send money to someone, it's there. The same premise here with Prism. I'm not updating beneficiaries every day. I'm updating them maybe quarterly or yearly based on a life change. And so the
right.
bank knows who they are. And then when something does happen, it's there for me to be able to access and know where everything is and go access the money and go handle the things that I need to handle um,
Yeah.
immediately
Well,
while I work through the more complex things.
yeah. So it's basically embedded. I
Yeah,
like someone said once like the best tech is invisible
correct.
when you don't even realize,
Correct. It
you
should be
know?
part of the experience, and that's why we built it. And that's the beauty of us. All of us on my team are bankers. We're ex bankers, either on the business unit side or the tech side. And that's one of the beauties of our team is we understand the operational realities of banking and understand how we need to embed it and remove friction and make it just very seamless. And that's how
Okay.
we built it so that it's embedded, it just works as a part of your regular banking experience.
Got it. Are there, see, in the brokerage world, I think a lot of people, I often try to have sort of a transfer on, like a TOD, transfer on death. Is that essentially what this is?
Yeah, it essentially is that being able to provide that, digitizing that for the banks takes it a little step further, but yes, you can have a
Yeah,
transfer on
for
death.
sure.
The beneficiary serves as that as well, but and typically it goes sideways first to the spouse and then to a
Spouses.
child. But absolutely, the transfer of death makes it much easier. And so we do have financial advisors and RIAs that are customers to where we digitize this
Hmm.
for them as well.
Okay, right. Well, I think it's all about finding who's at the center of that wheel of sort of to name a different business in the wealth tech space, like the asset map. Do you know
Yep.
those guys?
Yeah, I know those guys well.
So you know Adam.
I know Adam
Yeah.
Holt. Yep.
Yeah. So I feel like a lot of these companies like yours, theirs, and others are sort of, they're all out there and they all can do a lot of good thing. How has been part of the fintech, wealth tech I don't want to say death tech, community. I know we met each other basically through Nicole Casperson, FinTech is Femme, and some other groups, as well as just following each other here on LinkedIn and around. How has community served you in the business and
Oh,
with what your mission is?
yeah, it's been phenomenal. We keep each other sharp and we share information. We talk about what the trends are. Um, we help each other understand what the challenges are, the changes in regulatory space as well. And so it's always good to be able to talk to other people building in the same industry or the same vertical that you're building on to see where there may be gaps and where there are synergies across the board, because I do think that there is a future where we're going to go more towards an ecosystem of products that we can
Okay.
go into financial institutions and say, Adam does this well, or Martha does this well. So we can plug them in and we can work together, right? Because every platform or every software doesn't do everything. You can't be everything to everyone, but you can complement each other as you provide solutions to the industry as a whole. And so, and
Yeah.
that's the thing. So we're able to have those conversations, share those conversations with each other, and
Yeah.
make each other better.
Yeah. I would also say maybe you've already spoken to the team at Empathy, if you know those guys.
I haven't met the team at Empathy yet.
Okay, I'll have to make that introduction.
That'll be awesome.
Yeah. So what can, let's take the banking side out of it. What should families, folks with, maybe they're in like the sandwich generation, like that Gen X type,
Yeah.
like they have parents aging, they have kids. What should they do to maybe get everyone on the same page and start thinking about this wealth transfer?
Yeah, like me, I'm a Gen Xer, so you have to
Yeah,
talk about it.
same.
You have to talk about it. And like in the sense of my dad, he didn't want to talk about it. Very private, don't want to talk about the
Mm,
money, all of the things. But that was a wake up call when he did get injured. And we were like, Dad, look, see, we need to have this conversation. And
yeah,
for
and
those,
honestly, thank God, it could have been a lot worse.
absolutely could have
Right,
been a lot
right.
worse. But there are families who don't have, like, no one is injured, but the person just doesn't want to talk about it. One of the things that I always say that motivates people is someone will make a decision. A decision will be made for you on where these assets go. Do you want the government to make the decision or do you want to make the decision? I mean,
Yeah,
when you talk about it in that sense, that, if you're not planning and talking through this, then your money will go to the government. Like
yeah,
it will not go to where you want it to go. So
yeah,
you want a say in this. And so because you want that say in it, have the conversation with your family. And when you say that to the older folks, they perk up and they're like, yeah, I didn't work this hard all these years for my money to go to the government. So let's
yeah.
start to have the conversation. The other
Right.
thing that
Or
I always say to your point, to your story of the wife getting hit by the bus is later doesn't belong to us. We always think we have the time to do it later. We
mm,
really do, and we don't. We do not. So when we have those conversations with our boomer parents, it's mom, dad. Anything can happen tomorrow. You want to make sure that we aren't struggling trying to scramble and find things for you. So let's have the conversation. Let's find the tools that can help us. Let's make sure that we know where the assets are so that at the end, we're not stressed and we can really grieve you properly, right?
yeah,
Without all the added stress of everything else.
yeah. And that's what they've wanted all along, for their
Correct.
legacy to be strong. And
Correct.
probate is worse than death. Yeah, probably the only thing worse is probate,
Correct.
because it compounds the pain of loss with
Absolutely.
this whole other terrible process.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah. Well, and that's why I think, to go back to life insurance, like I came up in life insurance, and that's sort of, to me, why that's so important, because that's so liquid. And you mentioned the liquidity aspect and everything. But yeah, I I still sometimes assume something, and then you know what happens when you assume. So what can this audience and community do to support you? And maybe before you answer that, like who at the bank do you talk to
Yeah.
start getting these kinds of programs in place?
Yeah, I'm sim I'm typically talking to the C-suite. So I'm talking to head of
Hmm.
deposits, I'm talking to the COO, I'm talking to the CEO.
Hmm.
I attend a lot of the conferences like the ABA, the Ole Miss Banking Symposium, fintech meetups where you have the C-suites looking for innovative products like ours to help them in
Hmm.
this sense. So those are typically the decision makers. I'm also talking to the tech guys as well, because as
Sure.
a coming from the tech side of it, they need to understand the value that they're bringing in, what they may be supporting, and what they're helping bring into the bank. And so those are who I'm typically talking to. So how the community can support is introductions to bankers. I would encourage every banker to go get their score. They can go to getprism.com/DMI to see
Okay.
exactly how much money is going to be leaving their
Wow.
institutions over
That's
the
that's
next.
pretty stark too.
Yeah,
Like
it
if you see the number, that makes you go, okay, I actually have
correct.
to do something. So please
Correct.
put that in the comments.
I will definitely put that in the comments to where
Yeah.
they can go get their reports and see that. And then and it
You sh-
moves them to act.
yeah. You should somehow change the name or the letters to DNR, as in like do not resuscitate. I don't know.
No, I don't.
Deposits not remaining.
No,
How's that?
I don't
Can
think
we
that they
change
would.
it?
No, I don't think that they would like that because they want to be resuscitated. They want to live. That we need the community banks in the communities. We do not
Yeah.
want them to
Well, but if you don't
die.
do this, that's it.
Yeah,
Sorry. No,
that's
you're going through probate now. No.
yeah,
Um, the money's gone. Once the money's gone, it
that's
doesn't come back.
yeah,
You know.
that's true.
Um, wow. Who, if you could have this talk or conversation, about legacy and planning and all this kind of stuff, uh, with anyone, who would you want to talk? And don't say Jamie Dimon, because that's like, yeah, then you want him as a customer. But
No, and actually, I don't want Jamie as a diamond. I mean, Jamie Dimon as a
huh,
customer. I'd love him to talk about this.
okay,
But I wouldn't. They're doing their own thing, and Jamie Dimon is brilliant in his own sense and some of the
of
things he's
course.
doing, and I can have that whole conversation. Um, Really, I would say it's the bank leaders on a whole, just all of the old school banking guys, because they still look at death as natural attrition, and they look at it as there's nothing we can do, right? And they still haven't made the jump from I can actually do something about this. Because I had a conversation this week where I was talking to someone and they were just like, oh, we don't have a retention problem. We have, we open new accounts all the time. And then in
Right.
the next breath, they were just like, but we lose a lot of accounts to death. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I was
Right.
like, and that's because they're
Right.
not thinking of death as attrition, right? And that they close those accounts and they're not
Yeah.
actually doing the math to see how many accounts are we creating versus what we're losing. And that's what the DMI really actually shows them growth versus, well, runoff versus growth. And so I
Right.
would challenge them and have the conversation with them to say, let's think about it differently, that you're not just servicing the one account holder, but you're servicing the family, especially with more multi-generational families living together and taking care of each other with
Hmm.
um, the caregiving challenges that we're seeing today. And so I would really have a conversation with bank leaders as a whole to say, don't ignore this because the numbers are very compelling as to what's going to leave. And your competitor is no longer just the community bank down the street. It's the fintechs that are
Hmm.
applying for charters. It's stable coins that's coming for deposits,
Hmm.
all of these different things. And so, in order to differentiate yourself, we have to look at what you do well now. And what they do
Hmm.
well now is service their customers who've been customers for 30 years, 40 years, right?
Yeah.
How can you transfer that trust to
Yeah.
that next generation?
Right. Because if you've had a customer for a long time, there's a real uh, it's it's a lot of friction to move your bank accounts if you're an existing client. But
Correct.
if you're inheriting and you have your existing accounts elsewhere or different relationships, um, What last practical takeaways and thoughts do you have for maybe for someone out there who is thinking about their idea and building something off it and creating something from it?
I would say just you just have to go out there and do it and build it and but talk to a lot of people, validate the problem, make sure that it is a problem that is solvable, um, and that you're the right person to do it, right? Because I kind of fell into this and someone coined it, Martha, you have founder market fit, which I never heard
Hmm.
before. They're like, because you have the experience in this, but also you saw the problem from the institution side of it. Um, and so really make sure you understand the problem. Talk to as many people as you possibly can, get a good support system. And then the last thing is really you just have to do it. You have to go out there and put the idea out there, build the prototype, and just go do it.
Okay, that's amazing. That's a great place to leave it. Thank you, Martha. Appreciate it. Everyone, go follow Martha on LinkedIn and elsewhere, and leave any comments and where to find you and what to do and what to follow and what to sort of start thinking about. When it comes to their own situation, and also if you're in a bank, what you're doing about it, because you can't just assume.
Cannot. Thank you, Ariel.
All right. Sure. Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.